Tony. Oh,
Not yet.
yay.
Not yet.
Hello.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Super Awesome Show. Today, we're here with our super awesome guest, Johannes, who we've had the pleasure of being at the AJC school with and become good friends with. And we're here just to have a great conversation. Three awesome dudes talking and getting to know each other better. So without further ado, welcome to the Super Awesome Show.
Yeah, and we only have super awesome people on this show, so that's the motto, right? We're very strict with this. Just want to make it sure.
Yeah,
everybody knows.
Now everybody you made the cut.
Yeah, and I tried to get invited as confirmation that I can count myself among the super awesome people.
We will give you a badge later.
Right.
Oh, this show is the badge. So, Johannes, do you want to share something about you with people who don't know, who have no idea who you are?
Like, what do you want to do? You really want to know who I am? But that would take 5 minutes. But that would take 5 minutes. Give
us the super awesome brief version of who you are.
Who am I? I mean, first and foremost, I'm a human living an amazing life, a really, really beautiful life, and enjoying it so much, especially for the last few years, based on developments, understandings, learnings, and so on in my life that we may or may not get into in the next hour. But life is just becoming better and more beautiful and more super awesome for this human, calling himself Dr. Johannes Metzler, showing up in the world on LinkedIn as an executive coach, a life coach for business people, as I sometimes say, but more importantly, as a father of two incredible, wonderful kids, husband of an incredible wife, and yeah, a colleague to you guys, a coach to some incredible clients, a friend to other super awesome people in my life. So a human trying his best to create a beautiful life for himself and for those around him, and create his being every day.
All right, I gotta jump in on one thing you said there. Everything is super awesome, except you're not trying to be your best. It's do or do not. There is no try. You are being your best. You are creating your best self every day, and I know that about you, brother.
Yeah. And to jump in, you said about having an amazing life, an amazing experience, right? And it's not knowing you're not trying to bullshit anyone. That you truly mean that. So maybe to continue, like, what's your secret you don't want to share with others or want to share with others? Best kept secret of having this sort of experience and creating that.
First of all, Tony, like, thank you. I really want to acknowledge you for the catch that you just the catch in my language. Because you're right. I am. Like, I'm living my potential every day, and I'm perfect just the way I am. And the secret, what's the secret? It's funny. I had a connection call with someone 2 days ago, and we started, sometimes when you meet these people and you go super deep, super fast, even though you don't know them. And it was one of those calls, and we started by asking each other the question, like, how are we abnormal? How are we not normal? And when he asked me the question, I thought about it, and what came up for me was like, I don't think it's normal, at least, comparative. I think it's natural, but I don't think it's normal that for the last 5 years or so, in, I would guess, 97% of cases, when someone has asked me the question, how are you? I would say, I am great. I'm amazing. I am fantastic. And I really mean it. It's not because I'm trying to bullshit. I'm not even trying to create it through language, because that's how I feel. And I think that's what you're asking about, Alexander.
Yeah.
Like what happened? And I think, going a bit into my story, but not too much. I think I would have always in the past like considered myself someone like an intellectual, someone who's very analytic, who's basically thinking a lot, and also
Yeah, I
seeing
can relate. I can relate.
and also seeing thinking as my superpower. Analyzing, structuring, optimizing, researching, breaking things down, and what happened to me on my journey of learning and growth that I've been on for the last 20 or so years in what I used to call the personal development space and world was that I stumbled over a coach in a podcast episode about 5 years ago by the name of Jamie Smart, and picking up on something that he said that I didn't understand at the time, about the mind and about thought and how thought creates reality, or how we're living in the experience of thought. And I was thinking, what is he talking about? I thought I knew all this stuff from psychology and personal development, but I was smart enough to be with my not knowing and say there's something for me to see here. And then I started engaging with him. I started training with Jamie Smart as a coach. And what I came across, what I didn't really know in the very first instance, was a revolutionary understanding of how the mind works and who we really are. And what I love about your show is basically you're pointing to who and what we really are, which is super awesome at the core. That it's just that we forget all the time. And I've really started seeing this super awesome, this incredible, this fantastic, this resilient, this creative, this happy, this fulfilled nature of ourselves deeper and deeper and deeper. And I've come to see at a deeper and deeper level how we are thinking ourselves away from that beautiful nature and experience of life, because we're always living in the experience of thought in the moment. And we're usually experiencing the hallucination and the misunderstanding that we're not living in the experience of thought, but we're living in the experience of our circumstances, our world, like in the feeling that other people are giving us, in the experience of our personality, which is completely made up.
That's brilliant. Can you give an example
of what exactly?
Like the how we create or how we experience the thoughts actually then in an illusion instead of something else.
Yeah, I mean, the way I see it, there's this beautiful quote by David Bohm, who said, "Thought creates our world and then says, I didn't do it."
Nice. I like that one. I'm gonna definitely borrow that one. Yeah. I mean, before you jump into your example, I mean, it sounds like you're talking about most people are living from the outside in versus the inside out.
Yeah, exactly. It's fascinating, right? So we know that the earth is moving and the sun doesn't move. And yet when we look out the window in the morning, it looks like the sun is rising. We even call it a sunrise. And it looks like it looks like it's setting, and we call it a sunset. Like it's a pervasive illusion that we're living in, even though we know how at least like our solar system works by now, right? There was a point where we didn't know that. And so then, we were fully like humanity was fully living in that misunderstanding, which created all sorts of problems. Now, the funny thing about the mind is that for a reason that I cannot explain, that seems to be above my pay grade, like it creates the same illusion most of the time, which is that, as you say, Tony, that it works outside in, that stuff happens out there and then gives us, and we're just taking it in, we're just living in the feeling or the experience of what's going on out there. And so that's what I mean by thought creates our world and then says I didn't do it, right? I could, like, my wife could say something this morning, like just making up an example right here, where, I could feel unfairly treated or something like that, or not appreciated. And it would
upset,
look like
pissed off.
And it would look like that's because of what my wife said. Which would be the outside in misunderstanding. That would be my wife having the superpower of giving me a feeling, implanting a feeling into me, which I wouldn't know how that works if I really think about it.
Mm-hmm.
So the only thing that could happen in this instance is that my wife says something, which I take in via my senses, via my ears in this moment. And then I make meaning of what was being said, right? If she was speaking in Chinese, I wouldn't even know what it meant. Right? If she was saying the same thing to you, Tony, you wouldn't know what it means. Like you would create a completely different interpretation based on your lack of speaking German.
And my wife's Cambodian, so I get that all the time, legitimately.
So you create stories anyway, right? That's how it works.
Yeah, but it's usually when we're around other of her family that I don't understand, and they're talking, and then they're looking at me, and I'm like, okay, I see. No, I'm just.
Yeah, and so basically, then I create meaning based on my thinking and what I think about the past and what I think about her and what state of mind I'm in and so on. And so I create like this crazy experience in this most powerful science fiction generator that is our mind. And it would look like it's coming from her. But what I've come to see, which is that transformative understanding, is it's always coming from me. It's always coming from the inside out. It's always thought, the power of thought in the moment, creating my reality and then projecting it out into the world. And then the next moment, consciousness taking it in and making it look as if it was coming from the outside, which is this crazy working of the mind and this crazy misunderstanding. And that happens basically all day, every day, in every moment of our lives. And when we live in this misunderstanding, we're just not very smart, because we're not living in harmony with reality.
Right.
And the deepening of this understanding, what it has done for me is that I'm catching myself more and more often, faster and faster, in being in this misunderstanding, and then ideally through seeing this, like dropping out of the misunderstanding, dropping back into the present moment. And in the present moment, when we're clear, when we're calm, when we're present, we have access to this super awesome essence and nature of us, from which, coming from love, coming from understanding, deeply listening, creating new ideas and new possibilities is our natural state, is our natural possibility. And I think that's basically the long answer to the question that you asked, right? That's like, why am I feeling almost constantly great? Why has my baseline of state of mind and quality of life increased so much? Not because of my circumstances, but because that's our natural state. And I think I'm nurturing the ability to be more in line with, to be more in harmony with that natural state more and more of the time, and drop out of it when I'm not, which of course happens to me all the time as well.
Of course, we're all human. It happens. So that brings up another question, because now you've gone on this. I love what you said, everything about living in that natural state. Now, what kind of practices do you have daily or weekly or regularly that keep you in that state, or when you get out of that state, bring you back into that state?
That's a great question. Because there was a time when I thought, I needed to meditate or something like that in order to cultivate that state and be in that more of the time. And I haven't meditated in a really long time. I almost never meditate. So it looks to me like my practice is being immersed in this understanding and learning and being surrounded by guys like you in a container like the AJC coaching school where we all met, which makes it easier to deepen this understanding. That's definitely one way. I think the second way is coaching itself. In order to be the best possible coach I can be, I need to cultivate the ability to be super present with my clients, in listening to my clients. And I once had that realization that coaching is my meditation. Because I need to be super aware where, if my mind is going somewhere else and making up stuff, making up stuff about me or about the client or about what I need to do after the session or what's not working in my life, and realize this is not useful. This is not what is needed right now, and come back to the present moment. And I think that actually, like, doing that a couple of hours every day for the last few years has cultivated my ability to not do that so much anymore.
Right.
So that's, I think, luckily enough, my job is one of the main practices to deepen this understanding, like deep listening, which I've chosen as my profession. And then the third thing that comes to mind is, speaking my document, engaging with my document on a daily basis, recreating myself. Now that's going to mean something to you. I'm not sure how much that means to
let's explain what that is to people who are clueless.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's funny. A lot of our audience has read The Ultimate Coach, but they don't necessarily know what it means to go deep into creation of the document creation process. So they know what a document is, but not necessarily how powerful it can be for everybody. So yeah, it's fun. Most of the people that are going to watch or listen have been exposed in some way, shape, or form to what the term document means.
Yeah. Okay. So, I mean, my short version of that is, based on, the work of Steve Hardison, The Ultimate Coach, and my work with my coach, Ankush Jain, I have created my own document, my own set of I am statements, my own, best possible expression in human language of who I really am at the core, at my best. And over the last 2.5 years or so, I have deepened my relationship with this document, with this set of I am statements, with this set of best possible versions of myself, both as already true and as an aspiration. And by engaging with that and very specifically speaking it out loud at least twice a day, not reading it, but knowing it and speaking it to other people, that is almost like a set of mantras that's bringing me back on a daily basis to this, expression of my true essence.
Sorry, I don't mean to chuckle. I want to come back to the very beginning. Alexander, when you asked Johannes, who are you? I have expected to hear the document back. I was like, oh wait, are we going to hear it? Are we going to hear it? But so it is a creation of who you are. And I love that about mine. And I've heard both of yours and I love it. I love what you guys are creating about yourselves and who we're creating as ourselves.
Yeah. I mean, I wanted to be respectful of you as the host and of your audience before, taking up 5 minutes of the show by speaking my document. But yeah, that's a great way to think about when someone asks me, who are you really? Like, what is my answer? Is it going to be the labels that people usually expect, right? What I do for work, and maybe, who I have in my life. Those are basically the most common labels, or where I'm from, where I was born, where I live, those sorts of things. Or is it an expression of who I am at the core, at my best, which when you go through those 50 lines, you will see there are almost none of the classical labels that people usually give when they're being asked, who are you?
Right.
Can you give an example? Just to give a taste of a line. Do you want to do it? And no is totally fine.
Yeah. So, I mean, for example, one line in my document is, I am loving kindness, patience, presence, playfulness, and service to my children, Caspar and Malena, who are perfect exactly as they are.
Wow. That's beautiful.
That is.
What is different when you are more of that as opposed to, the default, some of the defaults people have, in their lives?
Yeah, I am. I'm much more loving. I'm much more present. I'm much more connected. I'm basically, much more of what it says in that statement.
Yeah.
But I'm less reactive, right? I am less, triggered. I am less the opposite of what it says in that statement, which is what I think you alluded to when you said, the default behavior, kind of like the conditioned programming that sometimes kicks in when, I make a specific unhelpful meaning, or I'm getting, like, truth be told, or I'm getting scared, right? So I had this realization that when I'm not that with my children, it's usually because I'm scared of something. Like, I'm making up a version of the future of myself or our family or for them, which I think is undesired. And thus I don't like the word triggered. I actually hate it. It's just that it's so common language and so used.
Yeah.
But then that some automatic programming kicks in that would make me think is useful in order to prevent that completely made up future in that moment. But it's coming from fear. I think that's another great way of saying that, right? When I'm that statement, I'm coming from love. When I'm not that statement, I'm coming from fear.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful distinction.
It is
Beautiful
a very good distinction. Yeah, I like to joke with my wife about it that I could have used a statement like that when my kids were younger, because that was a little different. Our kids are mostly grown now. Our youngest is 18, just turned 18 and graduates high school next week. But when they were younger, man, I could have used a statement like that. I wasn't living that statement, that's for sure. It's a whole different. But similar to you, I discovered real powerful personal development probably 5-6 years ago versus all the years. My wife and I have been together for 22 years. So there was a lot of those years where it was just doing the grind thing, going to work every day and bringing home a paycheck, trying to relax on the couch and things like that. It didn't really click until probably 2018. So it's a big shift.
Yeah. What brought you into this space, Johannes? Like serious and sustainable professional and personal growth.
Well, okay. Before you answer that, I want to piggyback on that. Yes, that question also, but also what was before that? What led you to, what was the career path? What were you doing that got when you hit that space?
Okay. So I think that's really interesting because I said some of that before, right? So I think my personality was one of like really smart, always learning, very intellectual, always great at school, well behaved, and also indecisive. I didn't really know what to do with my life. And so for a really long time, I kept my options very open while trying to always stay on a steep learning path. And so after school, in order to keep my options open, I studied business administration. After studying business administration, in order to keep my options open and to learn more, I did a PhD in economics. After my PhD in economics, in order to still not really decide what I wanted to do and stay on a learning path, I became a consultant, like a management and strategy consultant. And so I was always interested by the world of business. And so basically, before going full-time into coaching, I was always in business in different capacities. I worked as a strategy consultant. I worked as a manager and leader. I had my own company together with my brother as an entrepreneur and founder. I was working as a independent consultant / trainer / project manager. And before moving full-time into coaching, I was working for a company as a executive director, people and strategy. So basically responsible for HR and for the strategy process in that company. So it was a lot of different functions in the world of business. And I basically changed every 2 to 3 years because I felt like I was coming to the end of my steep learning curve. I felt like the job hadn't fulfilled me as I had hoped it would. I felt like I hadn't arrived wherever that was, but I was constantly kind of like looking for this next thing. And while on the one hand, like this brought me very far because I've read, hundreds of books and I've learned so much, and whatever I do, I always try to really go deep and understand it and show up in that way. And at some point I realized that behavior was coming from lack. The behavior wasn't coming, like I love learning, and my learning behavior was coming from lack of something missing inside of me, looking for something that I thought I needed to find somewhere in my job or in my position or in my success or my status. And so that basically, like, besides the management track, I was always, learning and growing and reading and like thinking, looking for that thing that was missing. Kind of like, maybe I'll find it in the next book. Maybe I'll find it in the next course. Like it like the one thing that will flip the switch and make me happy.
Magically, right?
The magic bullet, yeah. So that was going on up until about 5 years ago, when I came across Jamie Smart by accident. And because everything changed from that, I think that was it feels like a rebirth. Honestly speaking, it feels like my experience of life completely changed. And the interesting thing, like I think one of the funny side notes of that is, in my pursuit of personal growth, I often thought about the possibility of becoming a coach or doing coaching training. And I always dismissed it because I thought that it must be so boring. Why? Why? Because I thought, how boring must it be to just sit there and ask questions coming from, my superpower is my intellect. So of course I want to deploy it to solve problems and structure projects and solve challenges and so on. But that would be completely taken away from me as a coach. So why would I want to do that? Until that made perfect sense for me to do.
So it wasn't boring, I guess, at all.
No. I came to like, let's say humans have two types of intelligence, and let's call them intellect and intuition for now. I thought I only had one type of intelligence. I thought I had intellect, and when other people say they're intuitive or they use intuition or gut feeling or something like that, I almost thought it like a lower form of intelligence than the intellect. And I actually see that a lot in my clients, right? People who are successful in business, people who are founders, executives, they are coming from the intellect and the rational mind so much, because I think to some degree also that's how society trains us, that's what our culture values for most people, maybe excluding artists and a couple of other groups. And I was the same. And I thought intuition is something that other people have. I don't really have it, and I wouldn't want to rely on it or like use it too much because it's not, reasonable. It's not, founded enough. And one of those switches for me was realizing how I think that, what you could call intuition is a much vaster, much bigger, much deeper form of intelligence. And we're living our best life when, that internal GPS runs the show, when that is the master and intellect is the servant or the helper to this deeper form of intelligence, right? That to me looks like the best combination of my two types of intelligence, and I was completely missing at least half of the equation before that.
Wow. So the intellect used to run the show, and
completely
at one point it switched. Wow.
Yeah. Or I mean, I don't really know, right? Sometimes I'm just making guesses. Sometimes I'm thinking maybe intuition ran the show all the time and my intellect took the credit. I don't know.
What was that? What was that quote? What was that quote from earlier? It was I can't even remember now. The quote you said at the beginning.
Yeah.
It was our mind creates our world and then makes up an excuse. Or is that how did that go?
Thought creates our world and then says I didn't do it.
Right. So it's kind of in line with what you just said. Maybe the intuition was do it and then saying they didn't do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's there's definitely shifts. Most of us who are in the coaching space or even just the personal development space have found that shift in some point or another. I was fortunate earlier on in my career, the company I worked for at the time saw me as somebody they wanted to develop as a leader. And to your point, up until that point in my early 20s and even late 20s, I was the know-it-all. I thought I was right all the time, and I was pushing my opinions and my thoughts on everybody in the company. And yes, we were getting results, but I was pissing everybody off at the same time. And so I'm not sure how prevalent it is in Europe, but the Dale Carnegie course here in the States is very well known for developing leaders. And so it was a 13 week course on site once a week for 13 weeks. And yet we had to read 3 books, go through a whole workbook, presentations, how to speak to people. And it was from the completion of that course that really kind of opened my eyes to how to treat people versus what was in here, and pushing what I thought was right. And that's where, in reality, if I'd have thought about it, that's actually where I started coaching, started asking questions, started developing people, becoming a leader versus just a boss. And it's great. I still have that workbook. I still have that stuff. And it's great to refer back to. A lot of the principles are the same that we teach today, or that we've learned from various books or courses that we've taken. But the point is, we all have that shift, like you were talking about when you met Jamie Smart. Or Alexander, what was your shift?
Great question. I think I had multiple shifts, and one of them was experiencing burnout, which turned out to be the greatest thing ever. And I don't want to go into too much detail, but I could essentially share 2 stories about it. One about the not so nice aspects of that, and the other one, which I prefer on all levels, which is about the biggest gift, greatest opportunity for a shift. And I use this for a shift, and I use this to slow down and to actually reflect and see what's going on and what was open for me, what's available for me. And it helped me recreate the relationship with myself, with others, especially people close to me, and with life, with everything in between. So it's like a rebirth, and it happens over time. Like I continued, which led to more and more life about the good and the value for others, and the service, and helping them grow, as opposed to reaching my goals and being only concerned about my agenda and how it goes. Like, it's so easy to allow the ego to run the show, or allow the intellect to run the show, as opposed to discovering something deeper and deeper purpose in life, deeper meaning in life, and uncovering what you really are, who you are, who you want to be, and how you want to show up, and the type of impact you want to have. Is it about KPIs, or is it about, okay, nothing wrong with KPIs, but there's a different whole different world out there, connected to growth and connected to, for me, being your best self and inspiring others.
Right.
Do you mean KPIs, key possibility indicators?
Nice one. I love it. Yeah, you can crush it on the outside. And some of my clients and some people I know, this is sometimes how it looks like, and it used to be true for me in the past. It could look like on the outside, hey, he's crushing it.
Right.
The career is going through the roof. I mean, the ownership of things, how many people report to you, and so all of that, right? All of the shiny things, like it looks like, oh, he's crushing it. On the inside, there can be a void. It can be something is missing, something is off.
Right.
It's so easy to try to chase something you think on the outside to close the void inside.
Yeah.
But guess what? That never works. At least in my experience.
Yeah.
Maybe you get some sort of short relief or an illusion of a relief, but nothing really changes.
Right.
So also when I started my business, the first huge success and big paycheck, nothing really changed. I was looking at it and I was like, hey, yes, unbelievable, excellent, but nothing really changed on the inside. All the stuff I've been dealing with still was there. So it made sense to actually challenge a few things and change a few things and shift a few things. How I look at life, my relationship with that, my relationship with myself, my relationship with people in general. That has been biggest shifts. And what you shared about the understanding, is it like, how do we create the experience? How do we have the experience? Is it, oh, it's let's say you're stuck in traffic, and then you start to complain, you start to moan, or you use it like, all right, I have this time now. Oh, I can call this colleague. Excellent, finally.
Mm-hmm.
So you use it, you make the best out of it instead of like complaining, essentially making yourself stupid.
Right.
Or being present. Exactly. That's like I used to be an internal coach. Used to have team of coaches and help them and help the whole organization, help also teams and leaders, and huge pressure of like knowing all the answers. When you come from intellect, when you come from ego, when you come from that stuff, from fear as well, or from the place of lack, not being enough. Versus like really relaxing and being present and trusting that people are awesome, amazing, that they are geniuses, they have their own superpowers, and if you're able to see that in yourself and in others and give them the space, it's just a totally different approach. And this is valid for leadership, this is valid for private life, families. I see it everywhere. So if you give them the space, give yourself the space, different things are suddenly possible.
Right.
Yeah. No, that's so beautiful. So what's coming up for me with you saying all of that is, to some degree you can say we are always creating our own experience. Maybe you could even say we are choosing our own experience. And I think that's where the power is coming from. That's where the shift is coming from. That's where the great feeling is coming from, because that implies the possibility to always create a different experience, to always choose a different experience. You don't even have to make yourself wrong if you're not having a great experience right now, right? It doesn't mean that I blame myself for not feeling great right now. Right. I'm just realizing what's going on, and I'm realizing the possibility that I have to create a different experience. And from that different experience, I will also probably create different things on the outside. But it's not because I need those things to be a certain way in order to create the different experience, but it's kind of like
it's just
the other
like
way
a
around.
side effect. It's a side effect, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And we are given the superpower to notice, to be aware, to think about our thinking and realize all this stuff. And sometimes, unfortunately, it takes a burnout or it takes a crisis, which I don't wish on anyone. And probably for many people, looking back, the crisis was the best thing that ever happened to them, because a switch was flipped, and we have the power to have insights and notice even without a crisis, and thus to always deepen our understanding and drop more and more out of the misunderstanding, out of the hallucination, create a more beautiful life in the process.
Right. Well, and I like how you talk about the crisis, and Alexander, you talk about learned how to deal with people a little better. It was not, I don't wish it on anyone either. And not necessarily a shift for me, but it was an an eye opener, an awareness thing for me when we went through Hurricane Michael in 2018, which was a Category 5 and just destroyed the entire area. I mean, we wrote it out. We sat in a master closet for 4 hours with 165-mile-an-hour winds going by. And even though what my wife and I both experienced out of this was not necessarily seeing the damage, even though, of course we did. It was seeing the people come together that wouldn't even have said hi to each other on the streets. Now all of a sudden they're helping each other get out of their houses. They're bringing chainsaws and cutting trees down. People who didn't know each other from Adam or Eve that are out there helping each other arm in arm in a community coming together. I mean, it was magical. Something like, so to all of our points, every one of us, every person on this planet has the ability to let that from the inside out and be that for everybody else. Unfortunately, like you said, sometimes it takes a burnout or a crisis for that to come out of people. And we got to see that firsthand from that experience, that these people finally let that inside out. You know what? I'm going to lead with love. I'm going to go help my neighbor that I've never talked to before. I'm going to go help this person down the street, or I'm going to bring supplies in the back of my truck to somebody who can't get to a grocery store. Things like that we got to witness firsthand that were just like amazing. It was about 6 months after that I hired my first coach.
Wow.
Yeah.
What a story. I love it.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a fun experience, that's for sure. And I wouldn't, and everyone's like, oh my God, you went through, I wouldn't change a thing. I learned so much. That experience is like nothing that you'll ever experience before. Hopefully never again. But we learned so much, and it's an experience that'll sit with us for the rest of our lives in a good way.
Oh yeah, if you choose to, right? We have the superpower of choosing. You put it so nicely, Johannes, about the power of choice, or superpower of choice.
Right.
We get to choose. And we might like ignore it and stay in the default, whatever that is, or we might choose. Nobody has to, but we have this absolute superpower of choosing. And talking about the hurricane experience, that could, like, some people would probably, share a different story. It's their choice. Or they are maybe not even aware of the choice. And there's a huge opportunity to use those experiences as wake-up calls, as something, as a learning, a growing opportunity.
Right.
Or opportunity to help people, support them.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, here's my interpretation, which I can't prove, I guess, other than experience it as true for myself. So I'm living from the very strong belief that if you basically cut away all the thinking crap that we have, all the thinking contamination and all the limiting beliefs and all these misunderstandings and so on, what's in there, this true essence, this super awesomeness, is like it's not neutral. It's beautiful and it's loving. And so my interpretation of your story, Tony, would be that basically when the ego, the crap is cut away, what comes out is this loving nature where you just want to help your neighbors, where you just want to help other people.
Right.
And this is just a beautiful thing, I think, to see and to go like a beautiful come from to go through life with, because it makes me want to see that loving essence in everyone.
Right. Right.
Oh yeah.
It's almost like sometimes you were asking me about a practice and I keep forgetting about it, and then I keep remembering. I'm like, oh, I want to do that more often. Like sometimes I go through the streets and I look at people and then I'm trying to basically see their loving essence. It's almost like it's almost like their second face, like coming up, and I'm looking for that. And then, whoever the person is, it always comes up, and I'm always getting such a different, more beautiful experience of other people when I intentionally look for that in others. And then I will always relate to them in a very different way. And I think that's also how I see coaching, right? I see the super awesomeness in all of my clients, and all I want to do is help them bring it out, like help them remember it. There's nothing I have to give to them other than maybe sometimes say words that may facilitate for them to see something about themselves, but not because I'm giving it to them. They already have it. Like we all have it innately. And it's just a matter of peeling away the layers of the thinking onion.
Yeah.
to bring out the beautiful nothingness at the center of the onion.
Yeah. Right.
That's amazing. And when we talk about this, sometimes what we label as challenging or catastrophic or bad, or it's like we experience stress. People call it stressful, people call it hard, and there's this usual way of dealing with this, and there are other ways of dealing with it, but there are shifts in between. Like we spoke about certain shifts and practices. We have a pretty awesome resource about shifts. So I want to recommend everybody who's listening this absolutely amazing book. The name, if you're not having a video now, the name is From Stress to Success by Johannes Metzler, about 10 mind shifts for high-performing business leaders. And it's absolutely fantastic. It's bare essence. You don't have a lot of blah blah and 10 stories for each. You just have the bare essence. And they are super powerful. Do you have like maybe your favorite or one of your favorites that you use all the time for yourself or with clients, or one that comes to your mind and you want to share to give a taste?
Yeah. From the book, Yeah. So, I mean, the way I think about it, what we talked about for the last 45 minutes or so is almost like the meta blind spot that we all have, right? The meta blind spot is that thought creates reality, and we often don't notice. But when we start shifting thought, we can create a new reality inside of us and outside of us. And so the book starts by going through 10 mind shift. It starts with the fact that we do have blind spots that we're often not aware of. And then it goes through some of them, for example, the inside out understanding that we touched upon.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things that has me most excited a lot of the time is one of the mind shifts that I called from solving to creating. And I think you also alluded to that, Alexander, a couple of minutes ago, which is that when we're in a more restricted like state of mind, then usually like something happens and we often look at it as a challenge that needs to be solved. And then the question is like, what should I do? How do I solve this problem? And when you come from that, things look like a dilemma or like a trade-off, and things look like something like problematic, basically, because
they trigger you. And
that's the interpretation that we've placed upon something, and then we're living inside the problematic box that we have created for ourselves with very few options. And what I love about our understanding and where we're coming from for our clients is to take that outside view and help ourselves, but also, well, our clients and ourselves, to not look at it as a challenge to solve, but a possibility to create. So basically, whatever the challenges that we have, to begin with the desired future in mind, rather than the problematic status quo and present, and basically start from the future we would love to create or we would desire, and then work our way backwards and see what actions are consistent with creating that future, or who do we need to be in order to create that future. And so the mind shift is from solving a challenge towards creating the future from the future, and then just living into it. And I love how people, I just had a coaching call before this session where someone basically said, like, I'm moving away to another city, and then I'll have to work remotely and all the challenges that come with that. And we did exactly that. We started from her desired future, right? Imagining what if this move would be the best thing that could ever happen to her? Like, what if that would improve all of her relationships, improve her leadership, improve her communication? Like, what would that look like? And then ask yourself, like, what needs to happen? What do you need to overcome, and what needs to happen in order to get there? And it's like a completely different view of life, view of possibility. And it opens up like many more options that you can then live into in order to create what you want to create. And I just love this view of looking at life and creating the future from the future.
That's brilliant. I love it. I really, really love it. And so maybe to also have the time in mind, what are you creating now? If you want, if there is anything you are, maybe something super awesome you want to share that will be available soon, or that you're up to, that's your possibility to share about it.
What am I creating right now? It's a great question. And I mean, to some degree, I cannot even really answer it because there's so many things I'm creating right now. Or I would have to tell you so many things. I feel like one of the beautiful side effects of this understanding in this profession is I feel like my mind is flooded with new ideas all the time. So, I could tell you 10 different things that I'm creating right now. For example, just yesterday, I was in a call with our beautiful coach, Ankush. And I had the idea, like, what if I created an extended version of my book, From Stress to Success? So the current version would be the concentrated version. And then I would create a bigger version with like stories and case studies and more metaphors, and so that people would still have either the condensed version or the extended version. That's one of the things. I just created a PDF for my clients. And it was another sort of like inspirational outburst about 10 ways CEOs and executives can bend time, lead with greater impact, and create the future, create the impossible. And so that it's just one of the things that may evolve into a new book or into a new thing. So
Wow.
So many things. And if someone would love to have that, basically that's something that I'm happy to share with committed listeners and readers, right? If someone
Hey,
were
I
to,
want to have that. I'm the first one.
I will happily send it to you with an agreement and a
Awesome.
request.
Right,
No, yeah,
right, of course.
yeah, it's a lot of things I'm creating. One of them being a new book, either an extension of my old book, or it would be also like the best leadership book ever written.
Setting the bar high. I love it.
Nice. Nice.
Yeah, that's it.
Is there anything else you want to
Yeah,
share with people?
we got one guy that says
who
yes.
are-
Yes, please.
Hey,
Graham,
Graham. Nice
get
to
it.
see you.
No, I think that's it. I think there's just how do I even phrase that? Like there's just so much beauty and just so much possibility in life. And I wish everyone could see how beautiful they are inside and how powerful they are. And I feel like I want to tell people if you're not seeing that right now, or if you want to expand your seeing of that right now, look for someone who can help you do that, like you guys, Tony and Alexander. You're amazing coaches. You help people create beautiful futures and create beautiful lives and so on. I can only recommend everyone to have an amazing coach in their life to help them unlock what is sometimes difficult to see from the inside.
Right.
Yeah, without the help of my supporters and coaches, first and foremost, I would not be sitting here. Would not have this conversation right now.
Yeah.
Right. Well, before we get going, where can everyone find you? I've got your website here that we can pop onto the screen. And then you can find Johannes at johannesmetzler.com. And where else? Where else is best for people to find you?
Yeah, that's a great place. I'm actually revamping the website right now. So in a couple of weeks, it'll be even more beautiful than it is right now. Other than that, I'm actually most active on LinkedIn. So if you want to find me under my name on LinkedIn, Johannes Metzler, that is a good place also to see what I'm up to see what I'm sharing, to basically get into how I'm seeing the world. I get all my clients to follow me on LinkedIn because I like it. It is all coming from the same grounding, from the same philosophy, and it supplements the coaching, but it's also really useful, I think, for open listeners and readers who are not my clients. So that's a great place to connect with me.
Excellent. And for everyone out there who wants to rewatch this episode or listen to it, it's going to be on all major podcast platforms here in the next few days. And you can always go to, of course, superawesomeshow.com and catch all the replays there from all the shows that we've had so far. So
can
Johannes,
I say
yes,
one last thing, please?
Please.
I really want to acknowledge you guys. I want to acknowledge you for your authenticity, for your creative power, and for your super awesomeness. I've gotten to know you both through the AJC coaching school. I've grown to love you both because you're just so authentic in your both very unique ways across the pond. And it's just always super special to spend time with you. I love how playful you are in putting this on, because I mean, I was coming to this from like, what are we going to talk about? And you basically just said, we're just going to have fun together. And I think that was the most beautiful experience. And that's just an expression of how you live and what you two are bringing into the world, like fun, playfulness, beautiful creation, possibility, and inspiration. And so you are super awesome. And it's beautiful to spend time with you.
Thank you for
Thank you,
noticing, my
Johannes.
friend.
Thank you for being a super awesome guest and sharing all the gold with people and creating awesome stuff and impacting people in the best possible ways.
Yes, thank you.
Keep going, man.
All right, everybody, keep an eye on the Facebook page. Keep an eye on the website for the next episode, which will be announced soon. So make it a great rest of your day, and always remember to stay super awesome.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.